How many of you have used GPT at work without telling your boss? Anyone? Anyone? All right. Do you know what your company's policy is on AI? Do you have one? There are no hands raised, so this is going to be excellent today. Our first speaker, Susan Beard, oversees partnerships and business development in the Center for Professional Development at Northwest Nazarene University. In her role teaching courses on leadership, networking, and communication, she has seen it all. And she's got some great stories about things that can go wrong with AI. Today, she's going to help us all understand what AI policies your company should have in place to protect itself, why they matter, and how to build them. Please join me in welcoming my good friend Susan Beard to the stage.
All right, I'm going to turn myself on. All right, so first of all, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Tressa and Matt, for giving me an invitation to come speak. I'm sure that you are all so excited to learn about policy, most exciting topic ever, and it's to start the day. So this will be awesome. My goal is today to talk to you about what are some of the risks, what are some of the benefits, and what are some of the main considerations when creating an AI policy, and how does that relate to branding, right? So that's what my goal is to talk to you about today. So the first thing that I want to do is just tell you a little bit about me. So first of all, I am not an AI expert. I did not major in computer science. I have used ChatGPT. I've used Bing and Symmetry and all of these other dabbling in AI, but I'm not an expert, nor am I an expert in policy. But I do consider myself an expert in how to represent your company and be a good brand ambassador. And we talk about at NNU about our brand and about AI. In fact, we are one of the 90% of companies that do not have an AI policy. 90% of companies have not taken any steps to set parameters around AI. And that's one of the reasons that we're talking about it today. So let's talk a little bit about why you might want to have a policy. So 3 reasons a policy makes sense. Okay, the first one is you want to get ahead of this cutting edge curve. Okay, so in marketing in particular, how many of you are marketing people? People that work in advertising, marketing, representing, brand for your company. Okay, 70% of people in marketing have tried ChatGPT. Okay, 70%, but only 10% of companies have a policy. So it's really important to understand what AI can do and what AI isn't really intended for. Okay, so you want to get ahead of that curve. So another reason that you would want to do this is to protect your intellectual policy or intellectual privacy. So for example, Samsung tasked an entire group of coders to use ChatGPT to create some code, to use some AI to create code. And just so you know, ChatGPT was started in 2022, and it hasn't been updated since then. So typically, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask questions of it, it's pulling data from 2022. But when you put the data in, it's still using that to create algorithms to tell you what for it to be smarter about what you're looking for. So it's not necessarily putting your intellectual property out onto the internet, but if you aren't careful, depending on which method you use for AI, you can put it out there. And Samsung accidentally made theirs open source. And so they took proprietary information and accidentally put it online for anyone. And obviously, Samsung's a technology company. This was a big mistake by their team, right? And so that's one of the reasons that you want to do this. Oops, wrong way. And finally, you want to protect your brand. Okay, employees need to know your brand in order to represent your brand. And oversight is an essential part of that. You wouldn't want, for example, at NNU, we have a whole branding packet. How many of your companies have a brand packet that they tell you, these are the colors we use, these are the, yes, thank you. You should, you know, you want your brand to be the right colors, right? And how you're allowed to use things. I worked at a school district and we were only allowed to tag under certain circumstances. So like if I was at a concert and I wasn't representing my school district, they did not want me to tag the school district that I was there, right? And so companies often will have those kind of policies and procedures, but very few companies have a branding or have a AI procedure. Okay, so on your tables, you have, or in your packet, you have this flyer. And this talks about the steps for creating a branding policy for your company. And on the back are these different ways that AI is being used in companies. Okay, so what I want you to do is to just take a minute and talk around your table about how is your company, if you've used AI or other people in your company have used AI, how are you using it right now? So just take a minute and talk about that around your table. All right. Anybody want to volunteer some ways that you have used AI in your role at work? Anybody have a way that you're using AI right now? Write letters of recommendation. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Anybody else? How else are you using AI right now? What are you using for?
Like flyers and marketing copy for
marketing copy, very common, yes. How else?
Research different things on how to use certain things.
Research, yes, very common way to use it. How else?
We use it for art generation for our charity.
Okay.
When we're artists, doesn't mean we don't want to, we just don't have the money. And so we use Canva's AI program, the downside of which you just can't recycle your own material.
Right.
But at this point, it's buster bust. What do you do?
Right. Yeah. For graphics and coming up with artwork, yes. How else?
I was just saying, sometimes just spell checking. Did I put the sentence structure together, right?
Okay. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. There are, as you can see from this list, there are lots of ways that companies are using AI. The music industry is using it to create music. They're like, I would like, you know, this many bars of this kind of music and give me some options, right? At NNU in the faculty department, we often use AI to, hey, this is what a description of my course is. Can you help me come up with some modules for it? Or here's a description of what we're doing in the class. Can you give me some titles, right? Give me some questions that would relate to this topic. A lot of people use it for resume writing. I work at this place. Here's the job description. How can I take my experience and match it to this job description? Those are all ways that people are using ChatGPT. And my boss, she calls ChatGPT Sheldon. And so whenever we're doing something, she goes, oh, I asked Sheldon about how I could create an activity for, you know, this leadership course. And so we all affectionately in our department now call ChatGPT Sheldon. So those are some ways that you can use AI in the workplace. But now let's talk about risk. And this is the reason that you want to have an AI policy, is because there are risks to using AI. Now this is from a survey with security.com. It's an online magazine that really addresses computer security, cyber issues. Okay, and it's asking what are some of the generative AI concerns. So this isn't general cybersecurity concerns. This is specific to AI that will generate content. So 65% are worried about data privacy. And we all know that if you put something on social media, that can be screen captured and it can be there literally for the rest of your life. And we all have heard of politicians and public figures who have gotten in trouble for something that they put on the internet long before their brain was completely formed, right? Happens all the time. So you definitely want to think about those security concerns. Next is employee decision-making based on inaccurate information. And when I talked with Matt, when we did our interview for this, I talked to him about how I did some AI, went into Sheldon, asked him, Sheldon, what are some reasons students would choose NNU? And I was really happy with some of the results. And then one of them said, the Picasso in the De Gaulle Museum. And I'm like, we don't have a De Gaulle Museum. I don't think we have a Picasso. All of our work is student work. And so the information you get from AI, if it doesn't know the answer, it will make up an answer for you. And that is one of the biggest concerns that employers have is, what if we ask something from AI and it iterates something for us that's not accurate? And so you always want to have your double check, right? You want to look up your information. All right, copyright and intellectual property issues. This is a big one. The copyright, we already had somebody that talked about that you can't copyright things that AI produces for you, can't trademark it, those kind of things. You want to make sure that, and I'm going to get to the next one. So, and this is the one that we're going to talk about with branding, is the loss of creativity and diversity of thought. When you overuse AI, your chances of being able to really think creatively are diminished. And that's one of the main reasons that as marketing professionals, that we need to be a little wary of AI and not be so over-reliant on it. So cyber concerns are the top concern. And then companies could be doing more, okay? This is very clear. With only 10% of companies having an AI policy, this is an area where literally every company can make a difference. How many of you, does anyone here have a company AI policy? One. Way to go. Way to go, Amy. Awesome. Okay. This is real. Oh, another one. We have two. Awesome. Look at you. What company are you from? Oh, engineering. That does not surprise me. Mortgage company kind of surprises me. Engineering does not surprise me, right? Because any company that has intellectual property, anybody that's an iterative kind of company that does design work, Matt should be concerned about having some of those policies in place. All right, and then this last one is unreliable data. And that's what I talked about with, here, if I didn't know NNU, could you imagine if I'd put that out there as, here's a reason to come to NNU, art students, come to NNU, we have Picasso, and we have, oh my gosh, I'd have lost my job, most likely. Okay, so I want you to now take a minute at your table. We've talked a little bit about the risks. For your company, which of the risks up here is what your company would be concerned about? So take a moment to talk about that around your table. All right, let's come back. What are your concerns with AI? Who would like to share one of your concerns with AI? Of these things, what makes you kind of go, maybe we should think about a policy? Yes?
I could justify any of these being my top one. Personally, as a creative marketer, I hate that loss of creativity and diversity because you are literally pulling from what has already been done.
Right.
You are not going to get anything original out of AI. So it can get you by, but you're not innovating and you're not leading.
Very good. Okay, who else? Yes?
On that note, I would like to say that she's right. Loss of creativity is exactly an issue, but for us, we've had so many different ideas that we would have never thought of that would have cost us hours and hours. Now that we know what we're looking for, we're wondering what is the justification, if any.
Right, okay. Anybody else? What's your main concern? Yes?
I think that removing inaccurate information is one of the big things. You know, I think that people just see all of these words because it gives you almost way too many words. Like, it takes so long to get to the point that you can really gloss over, you know, things that just aren't correct.
You're like, oh, that sounds pretty good. But do you check it, right? Do you go back and do a double check? Yes?
Employee decision-making come from the insurance industry. I can get into any, risk real quick. Like,
Yeah.
if they're having to make decisions for you, telling coverages are inaccurate, like that'd be
Right.
something.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? The more technical your industry is, the more careful you would want to be. You know, my husband owns an insurance brokerage, and so I did some research on different types of insurance for an event where I spoke at. And I had to actually, I got all this really great stuff, and I said, okay, honey, here's what I'm going to talk about. And he was like, no, that's not true. Where did you get that? And he's like, no. Here, let me rewrite this for you. It's always good to have more than one set of eyes on information that is technical and relies on accuracy, right? Okay, so now we're going to move on to the actual policy piece, okay? So I'm not going to get into the weeds. My original presentation, I literally went through all the step-by-step instructions, but I provided those for you, okay? So I'm not going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about the big ideas that will help you get started on what's really essential for an AI policy for your company. The first one is determine who can use it. Who can use it in your company? And for what purposes, okay? So who can use it? Can everyone use it? Can just the marketing department use it? Can just the IT department use it? Figure out who can use it and what can you use it for, okay? So that's the big one. And then you want to determine if accounts can be created with company emails, okay? Because again, you're letting an AI, a robot brain, into your company when you create that with a company email. Okay, so you need to think about where can you get this information? Because again, if you use a company email, it's tied to that AI company. And of course, they're using algorithms to track what companies are using ChatGPT, what companies are using Bing Copilot. They're tracking you, right? Now, when I use Bing Copilot, because I've used a bunch. Bing Copilot I use for creating titles and having it look up, is anybody else doing this? Okay, so I use it for that because like I said, ChatGPT was founded in 2022 and hasn't gone through a system upgrade yet. And so the information's a little bit older. And Bing is looking at what's on, what can they access right now. And so you want to figure out, can you use your company email? Can they not use your company email? It's kind of like when you have Canva. How many of you have a Canva account? Lots of people love Canva. Canva's amazing. How many of you have a company Canva account? Okay, right, so it's about half. Lots of people have Canva, lots of people use it. And part of it is that, like if you're using it for personal stuff, you feel like maybe you'll get in a little trouble if you use it for work. You may have a free account on your own, and then your company has a paid account. So you want to figure out, who's going to use it, what are they going to use it for, and can you use your company email and company computers in order to do this kind of work, okay? So you need to think about, there's 3 different layers of AI policy. There's prohibited, and that's basically who cannot use it at all, okay? That in our company, only these departments are allowed to use ChatGPT on company computers or whatever system that you use, right? So who cannot use it? Figure that part out. And then limited. Some people can use it and some people can't, okay? Some people can use it. These are the things you can use it for. These are the things you can't use it for. Some companies are saying that you can use it for research, but you cannot use it for coding. You can use it for spell check and summary of notes, but you can't use it for idea creation, right? So you want to think about that limited use. And then you have open use, okay? This means anybody can use it for any reason at all, and that's totally fine. I don't know many companies that would be totally on board with this, even though more than half of you are using ChatGPT already, okay? And then I put this catch-all statement on here. This is what NNU has already sent out, even though we don't have an all-encompassing policy on it. This has already been sent out. And many companies have this kind of catch-all. You see it at the bottom of the email that you get, right? That's like, this is, Heathers always have that at the bottom. This is, this is not to be used for blah, 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 right? It's got a little catch-all. So having a catch-all statement to kind of generically protect your company. Okay, so those are some things to think about when you're writing a policy. And again, the flyer on the table has a whole list of, if you are in charge of creating policy at your company, these are all the 8 steps for getting that done, which, nobody wants to hear me go through those step by step. Now, let's get to the branding idea. I love Solve. I love Tressa, love Matt, love Mariah. All the people at Solve are amazing. And I was trying to think of how can I relate this to Solve? And it really is under that idea of brain drain or creativity, loss of creativity and diversity of thought. So your brand is what makes you unique in the market, okay? Your brand is what makes you unique. Thank you. And so you need to think about what makes you unique. Your policy is the parameters of what people can do, okay? And then finally, you want to, the greatest concern by marketing is that loss of creativity or diversity of thought, okay? And so really what we're getting at here, and I have a little flyer on your table, and we're gonna take the last 2 minutes, and what I want you to do is to think through what does my creative brain is needed for in my company? What is my creativity needed for? And what could I use AI for? So on the back of this is the list of all of the different kinds of things people are already using AI for. I want you to use that, and at your table, there's 3 of them in the table, so you could do them in groups, or you could do it by yourself, or do it as a table. Think about what are the things that the creative brain is necessary for, and what are the things that AI can be used for. So take that last 2 minutes, we'll wrap it up in 2 minutes, and then we'll be ready for questions. All right, I don't want to go too over. I know I'm done here, so I'm wrapping it up. But I want to just get 1 or 2 to tell me this idea of exercising your creative muscle. So one of the things that I did some research on is that after over-relying on ChatGPT, okay, and this is the paid subscription, just so you know, I do recommend that if you're going to use it and put information in and you want it to iterate for you, make it come up with new stuff, you need the paid subscription, okay, just so you know. But 41%, so a company that allowed free use, when they went away from it and tried to iterate on their own, they found a 41% decrease in creativity. So if you don't exercise your creative muscle, you're not doing a good service for your brand. You need to think about, what can I use AI for, and what do we need to do on our own? What do we need to do to be cutting edge? What do we need to do to be new and fresh? And AI cannot do that for you. It will never be able to replace human intuition and thinking and creating the way that people can do it. So that's what I would encourage you to think about. Thank you.
Time for questions?
Oh, okay.
I know, I was like, you don't think you're getting away
I
that
kind of did
quickly,
think I was
do
getting
you?
away with that.
All right, that was a great discussion. Hope everybody's using their field guide with their Basecamp pen to take notes. So we have a little bit of time for questions for Susan. Does anyone have a question on her presentation? Anything about AI?
Yes, Karen?
Your educational perspective, how is NNU crafting policies with students and the work they're producing, whether or not they're able to use AI?
So NNU has, a lot of professors are putting student work into an AI to check to see if it's copyrighted or plagiarism. So we have some of that, that's being used. But I'll tell you, one of the cutting edge things, I went to the ASCD, which is the Association for Supervisors and Curriculum Developers, so all the people who write curriculum. And one of the things that they talked about was that there is no way to get away from ChatGPT at this point. There's no way to get students not to be using it to create work. And so really the idea is, how do you teach them to use it responsibly, and how do they give that information back to show that they truly understand it? Because it's that scientific process of observation, testing, analysis, and retrying. That's really what you want to teach in college, right? That ability to think. And so really the idea now moving forward is, how can we work on evidence of learning that is not a paper that they've written, but instead, how can we show evidence? So that's really what NNU is working towards. Any other questions? Yes?
You talked earlier about how if someone creates something on ChatGPT that it can't be copyrighted. Is that literally anything spit out by ChatGPT cannot be copyrighted?
Not necessarily. It's that, is it truly intellectually yours if you've amalgamated information, curate it from a bunch of other things. And so the process of copywriting becomes more difficult. Trademarking becomes more difficult.
Is there a way that they know that you use ChatGPT for it, or are they just
I'm not an AI expert, but I would tell you that that there's nothing new under the sun is a cliche, because really there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, when I went to the forum for the Meridian Chamber and they talked about how many musicians use AI to create, I was like, are you really writing music if you're just asking ChatGPT to do it? I actually know 2 authors, one who writes trashy romance novels and another one who writes children's books, and they use AI to write those books. They'll be like, this is the plot, write me 2 chapters. And I'm like, is that really writing a book? I'm not really sure. I think that that's writing a book. So I think that that is a specific area where there is a lot of room for discussion.
Yeah, because I listened to a podcast, and one of the guys is an ex-musician, and what he was saying as far as musician goes is they'll put it in there, and then they kind of just use it as an editing tool, so that's kind of the rough draft, and then by the end of it, it's pretty much a totally different song than what the AI spit out.
Right, and so when we work with Sheldon, it's all about the question you ask Sheldon too. I don't know if anybody's kind of like dabbled in it, but sometimes you put something in and you're like, that is not what I'm looking for at all. And, and like my boss, she will say, Sheldon, I don't like that idea, give me something else. And so I've gotten better at asking questions, and I will definitely tell Sheldon when I don't like it. Mm-hmm. And I will tell Copilot, no, that is not what I'm looking for. Give me something completely different. And sometimes it will, and sometimes it doesn't give you something different at all. And that's when you use your creative muscle.
Well, Susan, I like your point, and I also like Chris's point about the fact that the diversity of thought and the discernment and the great ideas always come from humans. So there's a lot of conversations out there about how, okay, I'm going to date myself. How many of you have seen Terminator, the original, Skynet, about how ChatGPT is going to be Skynet? I don't think we'll lose that as long as we're conscientious and careful about what we're doing. It sounds like it can be a great tool to improve what we have.
Yeah,
Yes, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another round of applause.